In 2023, Don't Nod, a developer well known for its narrative and story-driven games, most notably Twin Mirror, Tell Me Why, and of course Life is Strange 1 and 2, announced a new project called Lost Records Bloom and Rage. Based upon the trailer and marketing for the game, Lost Records seemed almost like a spiritual successor of Life is Strange, easily one of their most popular franchises to date. As a massive Life is Strange fan myself, I was instantly drawn to this game, as were many other fans of the franchise, due to the clear DNA shared between these two titles. And the timing couldn't have been any better for fans of games of this genre, as in 2024, the year Lost Records was supposed to release, Deck 9, the now developers of the Life is Strange franchise, announced a new entry into the series, Life is Strange Double Exposure, having a release date dangerously close to Tape 1 of Lost Records, which in the fanbase instantly made the games as competitors to one another. After this little controversy of the games having release dates so close together, Don't Nod made the honourable decision of pushing back the release of Tape 1 of Lost Records to February 2025 rather than the original late 2024 release, stating that the decision was made to allow both games to have their time to shine, acknowledging that both of these franchises share a similar audience. A very smart decision. Upon Tape 1's release in February 2025, the game got a lot of praise, which gave me hope after what I'd just been through with Life is Strange Double Exposure. I initially held off from purchasing Lost Records right out of the gate, mainly because Double Exposure just killed off my faith in narrative and story-driven games for a while. The disappointment from that game just burnt me out completely. Now, I know that sounds silly because these are two different developers and games we're talking about here, but I just needed a break from that genre for a little while. However, I couldn't stay away for long. I purchased Tape 1 about a week before Tape 2 was due, and once I had played the entire game, Tape 1 and 2, it was safe to say that a reasonable amount of my faith was restored. Lost Records focuses on 4 teenagers, Swan, Autumn, Nora, and Kat. Set in 1995 and 2022 simultaneously, this is a coming-of-age story about self-discovery, nostalgia, mystery, and most importantly, sisterhood. However, something happened at the end of that summer which made the 4 girls agree to never speak again. But 27 years later, they reunite to decipher why they made that promise. The entire plot is the girls reuniting and trying to recall that very summer. It's a very basic premise, but it works. You play as Swan Holloway. In 1995, she's a quirky, awkward, and introverted teenager who captures the beauty of the world through the lens of her camcorder. Does that remind you of anyone at all? However, in the present day, she's since put down making films of her camcorder and she works in a bookstore, even stating that she's currently writing her own book. Her personality is still pretty much the same from 1995, confirming that usually once someone is an introvert, they are not likely to outgrow it. I found Swan to be really likeable right off the bat. I personally found her character quite relatable, and her shy approaches to the world were spot on, especially when she first meets the other girls, being extremely nervous and shy around them, but it's really heartwarming to see her slowly come out of her shell as time progresses on throughout that summer. The only nitpick I really have about Swan is the delivery of some of her lines as a teenager. Sometimes they were a bit out of place given the context of some of the scenes. They were also kind of cringy sporadically, and although that was probably the intention due to her shy nature, it just didn't fit in some scenes. But aside from that, the voice acting was pretty on point for Swan, especially her older self and all the other characters. Whilst I'm here, I suppose this is also a good opportunity to introduce the other leading girls here. We meet Autumn and Nora first. Having met them near the beginning of the game outside of the movie palace, Autumn works at the ice cream stall there. She loves video games, she's a skater, and is passionate about always doing the correct thing and standing up for what is right. She's very charismatic and is definitely the leader type, possessing more maturity than the other girls due to feeling the need to be the model minority, being within one of the few black families in Velvet Cove, where the game is set. Though despite this, she always has her friends' best interests at heart. Autumn states she knows she won't be rich and famous when she's older. Present-day Autumn stayed true to doing something that matters, as here, she's a social worker who helps young, unhoused women find homes, which is super on brand for her caring nature throughout the game. In 1995, she also played bass guitar and was in a band with Nora. Nora comes off as the rebellious type due to her alternative looks, but she's actually really eccentric and bubbly. She's also a lot more timid to danger than I thought, which proves to me that she may look rebellious, but actually, she doesn't want her friends to get hurt and get scared easily, and is more wary in comparison to the other girls. I found that quite endearing at times due to her resistant front. Despite that though, she's still a bundle of chaos. Nora plays guitar and dreams of one day being famous and wanting to move to LA to live with her mother. She kind of reminded me of Chloe from Life is Strange, just happier and without the tragic backstory. Present day Nora seems pretty subdued at first, almost a shell of who she used to be. A very toned down version of her once colourful teenage self, and it was clear to me that she did an awful lot of growing up. However, she did fulfill her dream of moving to LA and becoming famous, as she's now an esteemed fashion designer and creative director of her own company. Last, but certainly not least, we meet Kat shortly thereafter. She's strong-willed, ambiguous, and is, for a lack of better term, a total badass. She enjoys writing poems and loves music, being super into the Riot Girl scene. Due to her headstrong nature, she isn't afraid to speak her mind and does not let anyone walk over her or her friends. This is made very clear from the first time you meet, as she instantly stands up for you against Dylan and Corey, her sister and her sister's boyfriend, who gave Swan a hard time over a simple misunderstanding. This instantly sets the tone of Kat's character right away. She may look like a little sweet bean, but she's an absolute firecracker, being the culprit behind most of the crazy ideas these girls pull off that summer. We also meet an array of interesting side characters. The ones that actively contribute to the plot actually have a meaning and purpose. The two main side characters per se are Dylan and Corey. Dylan is Kat's sister, and your first encounter with her is extremely hostile, but I'm glad I didn't allow that first impression of her to form a negative opinion, because later on in the game, I felt so bad for her, learning that there is a lot more to her than what meets the eye. Corey is her boyfriend, and a massive asshole. But I liked that. Don't Nod were not scared to write someone who is as big of a douchebag as Corey is. The fact I hated him so much made me actually like his character. He doesn't have much of a backstory, which is a tiny letdown, but from that first encounter with him, you just know he's a dick. In my opinion, he's a good bad guy. Throughout the game, he gets worse and worse, throwing awful slurs at Swan and the girls, even attempting to burn them alive right at the end of the game, which is insane work. He fulfilled his purpose, and that was to leave a sour taste in your mouth after every encounter. As for our group of girls, it just fits. I feel like everyone here is easy to like, all possessing their own unique qualities and quirks, which just redeems each one in their own way, making them memorable, and you as the player care for them all. Despite the fact that they all come from different backgrounds, there is undeniable chemistry from the get-go. As the game progresses and based on the choices you make, you get to spend time with each one individually too. Sometimes the game gives you the choice of who, based on who you feel most connected to, and I really enjoyed that feature. There are multiple opportunities to bond with either Kat, Nora, and Autumn, given that you search for it, and it's rewarding to learn about their lore. Each character has somewhat of a relatable quality, which made it difficult to have a favourite. However, I do. Okay, so I may have a favourite out of the three, but it certainly didn't take away the moments I had with the other two. I was so happy that I was able to maintain a high friendship with Kat and Autumn. I got more emotionally attached to these girls the more I learned about them, which is why for me, the end of Tape 1 was such an emotional bombshell. Not only is friendship a massive theme, but there is also an option to have a romance with any of these girls if you think it fits. The game doesn't force it on you if you're not feeling it, which is definitely appreciated by those of you who just didn't want to delve into that, and that's okay. But being able to have romantic roots with either Nora, Kat, or Autumn adds that extra replay value that a lot of fans look for in games of this type. I romanced Nora in basically all of my playthroughs, and I feel like Don't Nod did a great job at capturing what romance is like as an adolescent. Not that I had much romantic experience when I was an adolescent, probably because I look like this, but there is an element of accurate teenage fever here that definitely made me feel reminiscent of my own youth. Things being a bit awkward, having your first crush, your first kiss, everything with that one person feeling like complete magic, which for our protagonist is actually the case. This doesn't just apply when you're romancing Nora, by the way, but Autumn and Cat too. There is no imbalance here. Every romantic road has its merits, it's just down to who you feel more drawn to, or who you feel is better suited for Swan, if any at all. I do just want to quickly take this opportunity to say that I appreciate the representation this game offers. With this title having a main cast of canon queer women, it's made it a target for some people calling it a DEI game or woke nonsense, making it susceptible to review bombing, which is complete bullshit. I mean, if you don't like it, no one's putting a gun to your head and forcing you to play it or anything, like... A game like this means a lot to me, especially in today's world, and I'm sure it does for a lot of other people too. I'm happy that a cast and story like this was still able to be made, despite the noise. And most importantly, I'm even happier that a developer like Don't Nod were the ones that made it possible. I know I'm not alone in saying that I couldn't imagine another developer making a game quite like this. So, thank you Don't Nod. Games like this are still important. Now moving on to the story. The plot is laid out and recounted throughout a dual timeline as the girls reunite in 2022 to understand and decipher why they agreed to never speak again. Autumn, being the one to reach out and instigate this reunion, has received a mysterious package addressed to Bloom and Rage, the band the girls formed in '95. There is a lot of mystery in 2022, none of the girls live in Velvet Cove anymore, and Autumn has called for a reunion to discuss what's in this package, and to just unpack absolutely everything from that summer when you were teens. Plus, Cat is not present at this reunion, which really made me want to play more to get answers as to why. I really enjoyed this narrative because you as the player know just as much as the characters at this stage. You're also none the wiser to why the girls stopped chatting, learning with the characters what happened. I was surprised, as I tend to not enjoy games that are told throughout a flashback format, but this was executed cohesively. Whether you're in '95 or 2022, scanning for prompts to interact with the environment presents you with context behind why this object or point of interest is significant, without overloading the player with too much information. I enjoyed this feature as it makes spending more time to explore rewarding. Plus, hearing the characters talk about something in present day when you're playing as Swan in '95 just adds a nice touch of nostalgia, highlighting the hindsight you feel as an adult over things you may have done or said in your own youth. It was a well-executed correlation and definitely invoked some subtle feelings of melancholy. The back and forth between present day and past did an accurate job of showing the clear change of our characters, showing that time has taken its course, like it does. Tape 1, being our introduction to the game of course, is definitely a lot more slow-paced than what I'm used to. At first, I wasn't sure if it was too slow, but in my second playthrough and thereafter, I began to appreciate the slow and steady pacing, easing the player into the experience. I tend to get overwhelmed when games give you too much too soon anyway, so it was a relief, but the first tape was still a lot longer than I expected, which I don't think is a bad thing. It gives you plenty of time to get to know Swan and the other characters, get a rough idea of the story and also the game mechanics. It doesn't give away too much too soon, keeping me guessing, which is what kept me playing. It really takes its time building up the foundation for the rest of the game, which is important in story-rich games like this. As for the story as a whole, it certainly wasn't perfect, but I still really enjoyed it. In games like this, the writing of the story is one of the most important things, but this is such a memorable tale. Plus, it sticks to its very clear themes throughout, keeping the story and our characters very coherent. There are a lot of memorable scenes and moments throughout the game. First one that comes to mind is learning that Kat is sick with leukemia right at the end of tape 1 after the concert. In classic Don't Nod fashion, not everything is sunshine and rainbows for long. At this point, I was already attached to the girls thanks to the slower pacing, so learning that one of them is literally dying and probably doesn't have much time left really tugged on my heartstrings. It changed the entire trajectory between our group. That entire scene, the voice acting, themes and music really augmented the intentional emotional impact, especially after everything you had been through in Tape 1 to lead up to this moment. Another is after the revelation of Kat's illness in Tape 2, watching how all the girls deal with it differently was fascinating. For example, Nora is obviously torn up about it, but she went away to LA for a short time for her birthday after the concert, and once she comes back, her and Swan hang out and she tells her she just wants to enjoy the rest of the summer, not letting the news of Kat's illness put a damper on things, and to make the best of this shitty situation. Whereas Autumn, on the other hand, completely shuts down, even having a panic attack at Fawn's rest. Speaking as someone who has experience with panic attacks, this scene is super raw and even made me feel emotional. It's pretty accurate in depicting what a panic attack can look like, how it can be triggered. It really put me in Autumn's shoes at that moment. I admired the present dialogue with this scene too, explaining that Autumn now knew how to deal with her panic attacks, and you can use this information to help, playing the game where you state 5 things you can see as a grounding technique. If you manage to successfully calm Autumn down, as well as having a high enough friendship level with her, you're treated to this very heartwarming scene of Autumn opening up to Swan at the Abyss, which I'll discuss this place later. I also enjoyed the scene of Swan and Nora trying to break Kat out of her room to watch the meteor shower. It's a good mix of danger and playfulness, given Nora's energetic attitude. Getting to cut Kat's hair was also a bittersweet scene that I enjoyed. Another scene that can be very different based on your friendship level with Kat. She allows herself to be completely vulnerable in front of Swan, which is so important given her unruly attitude. The actual meteor shower scene itself is also super bittersweet. Sadly, Kat gets caught trying to sneak out, so she's not able to join you. You get some super sweet scenes with Nora here, and Autumn too, if you manage to resolve her breakdown and you have a high enough friendship level, which is a testament to the fact that your choices do indeed have consequences. A great but underrated scene is right at the end when Swan regains possession of her camcorder in Kat's box after 27 years, and you get that first face reveal of our protagonist as an adult through that camcorder, after it being a mystery for the entirety of the game, due to present day cutscenes being in first person. There was something symbolic about that. Although my absolute favourite scene in the entire game is the dance scene near the end of Tape 2. This is truly a magical scene. So many emotions are swirling around here and it's just amazing. I can't quite put it into words, but this scene is just fantastic. And the music choice was top notch. The music in games like this are very important. If you look back at Life is Strange 1 and 2, music definitely played a huge role in these games, sometimes saying the words that couldn't be said, and this definitely follows suit in Lost Records. Music is very important in this game and also to our main cast of characters, and the soundtrack here is nothing short of great. The soundtrack includes the talent of Milk and Bone, Ruth Radelet, Nora Kelly Band, and a plethora of licensed tracks that are catchy and really suit the keynotes of the game. Sometimes in certain sections of a chapter, a song is playing lightly in the background, but it's an ambient instrumental version that sets the tone of the scenes, which is a really nice detail that I noticed. It's been a long time since a game actually touched my heart like Lost Records did. I do have one main gripe with the story, and that is actually the supernatural / witchcrafty tone throughout, including the Abyss, which is introduced about halfway through Tape 1. The girls make a pact here, and in the very same location that night, a massive purple hole known as the Abyss is there, and Kat, before we learn that she's sick, is extremely drawn to it and feels very connected to it. Despite it being exciting and bringing up an awful lot of questions and mystery, the game doesn't exactly explain all of this directly. But I think this is for a reason. It gives you enough information in the subtext to come up with your own theories and explanations for why this is. However, it did take me a few playthroughs to be less confused by this unknown entity. Maybe that's just a me problem though, I don't know. I won't go super in depth about the theories tied to this because I would like to save that for another video perhaps, but some of the main ones are that the Abyss is a portal to another dimension potentially, or that Kat is the Abyss. Some theories I've read online even suggest time travel, as at the end of the game when Kat calls for Swan from the Abyss, it appears she hasn't aged and is still her 16-year-old self. Speaking of the ending, I also had a few issues with that too. Now I will praise the fact that this game has multiple variations of an ending that is relatively the same, based on the choices you made and the friendships you nurtured with whomever along the way, but I still think the ending landed slightly flat. If Kat doesn't get claimed or dragged into the abyss at the end, she kind of just vanishes on the spot, which I found slightly confusing. I know that this is probably there to symbolise that after the girls made the promise to never speak or see each other again, Kat just fades away and they have to forget. But throughout the entire game, it's strongly implied that she's connected to the abyss, and in the post-credits scene, Swan travels back to the location of the abyss and seemingly enters it to find Kat, hinting at a sequel and that Lost Records is going to be a series of games, which is exciting, but I still think there could have been more to the ending than what we got. Defending this with the promise of a sequel still doesn't feel like a suitable justification. However, I did really like the ending in the present day format. If you manage to get both Nora and Autumn to stay, you get treated with a sentimental scene of them playing at the Blue Spruce, like they did as teenagers, albeit a bit different, with Kat looking over them. This ending totally didn't make me cry. Why would you say that? God, who's cutting the onions? I've taken a look at the other endings online, and though I'm very happy with the one I got, the others still have thought put into them, which was nice. My final gripe with the story is just why? Why now? Of course, Swan, Nora and Autumn reunite 27 years later to discuss what happened, along with the lockbox that Kat sent. Very sweet scene when it's opened, by the way. Our three girls, or shall I say, ladies, in the present day, asked this question multiple times throughout. It's been 27 years. Why now? But it's never quite answered. We know that Dylan, Kat's sister, sent the package to Autumn's mother, still living in Velvet Cove, as we learn this after opening it, but not much else is revealed after that. Luckily for me, these little gripes I am able to look past. The positives definitely outweighed the negatives when it comes to story and narrative. It's slightly flawed in places, but it still works and delivers its intended impact. Aside from those tiny little things that will probably just be explained in a sequel anyway, the story is great. It's interesting, emotional, quirky, fun, and it won't be easy to forget. If you've played Telltale story games before, especially Life is Strange, then you'll feel right at home with Lost Records' gameplay. The scenes where you actively take control of Swan certainly feel linear and familiar. Running around and exploring your environment is rewarding, getting to interact with other characters and objects to get more information and context. I really admired the little details along the way. A detail that I noticed instantly when I first played is when you pick up an item and move it around. There is a little sound effect as you move it, depending on the item type or on its material. It's little things like this that make the game feel slightly more alive, and I appreciated that. Another set of details I like is when you're playing a Swan in 1995, and the clear difference and gist that the game paints for that time. I may not be exactly age qualified to confirm the accuracy of what 1995 was actually like in this game, but I still feel a nostalgic quality from it. In spite of that, I think the game does a decent job of capturing the spirit of that time through the relevant pop culture references and the technology you can find in the world when you're playing here. Finding floppy disks, VHS tapes, cassette tapes, video game cartridges, and camcorders. Speaking of that, there is one gameplay feature that was a big part in the selling point for Lost Records, and that is the use of Swan's camcorder. At first, I was worried about this feature being a bit too gimmicky, but it wasn't at all, and it complements the free roamy parts of the game. It's slowly become one of my favourite things to do in a free roam section. The game tends to prompt you to record things on the camera at your own free will with memoirs, which acts as a collectible, capturing subjects and being able to make it into a film when you're finished. Whether it's your cat, other animals and critters, objects of interest, and even other characters. You even have control over editing the tape when you've got enough footage to make it into a memoir. You can rearrange your shots, replace footage with another bit of footage that you may feel is better. It was so easy to spend lots of time in the memoirs menu, playing around with everything. This feature is very simple, but added so much immersion into the experience, and it was honestly just cool. It encourages the player to pay better attention to the environment and even explore. There were things that I didn't discover until my second playthrough. For example, after you meet and spend some more time with the girls, they ask you to shoot a music video for Bloom and Rage, the band you will form. Just by spending more time exploring and paying attention to my surroundings in my second playthrough, I found an area where you can prompt Nora and Autumn to perform a fake concert on a rock, and you get to record them doing the air guitar. The game doesn't necessarily point you in this direction, so it's pretty easy to miss, but I'm glad I discovered this. Plus, looking back and editing the footage of them being so silly, it just made me laugh. There are a few other opportunities where you can record the girls being just silly, and it's so much fun, but that's the first one that comes to mind. Once you've finished a memoir, you can watch it and you're treated to more dialogue from Swan, narrating over these recordings, and I rate that. It gives you much more understanding on how Swan is feeling about said subject or person, sometimes offering additional lore and context. Now, don't get me wrong, this mechanic is certainly very basic and it can get a bit repetitive at times, but I still had a lot of fun with the creative freedom this feature permits. Plus, all the footage and memoirs you record throughout your playthrough gets shown after the ending with the signature song of the game, See You in Hell, in a music video format. It made the time spent recording lots of footage with Swan's camera worthwhile, as that ending sequence with all the player recorded footage made it feel really personal. Another important gameplay feature is, of course, the dialogue choices. Your actions do actually have consequences and alter the experience, which means there is so much replayability. When I was watching other people play the game online, more often than not, they'd say how they wanted to do another playthrough to experience the outcomes they may have missed. There are many outcomes and different routes the game can go down. Yes, the ending is still basically the same in retrospect, but due to the consequential format, it made each player's experience unique. The dialogue itself was fantastic as well. I loved the feature of more dialogue being available in certain scenes if you waited for a little while, and sometimes you didn't have to respond at all. The option is, of course, there, but if none of the dialogue options presented to you in that moment resonated, you don't have to choose, and Swan will stay silent. Characters sometimes comment if you don't respond, and that was a nice little detail. There is also a chance for more dialogue options to be available if you have interacted with that character previously on a similar topic, or have a better relationship with them, which can positively or even negatively affect the friendship/relationship level with that character. The feature of your relationship being affected through dialogue choices really adds more meaning to things, encouraging the player to truly think about the dialogue choice before making a decision. Some characters are harder to please than others, which is a testament to how hard the team worked on ensuring that each character was dynamic and different to one another. There are even some dialogue choices that one character may love, but can harm the relationship of another, so you do have to be careful, and I admired that. It's not a surprise to anyone to confirm that in terms of looks, Lost Records is as pretty as a picture, and I cannot ignore the amazing visuals of this game. Don't Nod worked extra hard to ensure that this game was visually pleasing, and it certainly paid off. Lost Records is extremely scenic, and it takes any and every opportunity to show that off. The landscapes are vast and colourful, and sometimes the appearance of the environment is impacted by the mood of the moment. Swan's bedroom being a good example. At the start of the game, her space is bright and sunny, underlining hope and promise. However, after the concert in the beginning of Tape 2, Swan is back in her room and it's dark and gloomy, highlighting that our protagonist feels sad and hopeless. The art style remains very cartoony in places, which I do think is Don't Nod's signature style, and I'm glad they remained faithful to that, instead of conforming to an ultra-realistic style. The cartoony effects in objects and our environment add so much personality and character, complementing the ambience. I had multiple moments in all my playthroughs where I paused to just appreciate the beauty of the atmosphere. The appearance of our characters are also very detailed, highlighting features such as eyes, makeup, freckles, beauty marks, acne, wrinkles, and overall, their faces are very expressive and well animated. Although I do want to quickly mention that sometimes the lip syncing was slightly off and didn't exactly match what the character was saying, but that is just me being picky. Visually, this game is an absolute treat, and I certainly didn't get bored of its very obvious beauty. It's a credit to Don't Nod and how hard they worked on crafting this. Lost Records Bloom and Rage is a great example of a coming-of-age story, mixing the feelings of melancholy and nostalgia together to draw the player in. Every moment and scene has been very well thought out, and this game has clearly been made with a lot of love and care, with the player experience being at the forefront. I do not expect anything less from Don't Nod, judging from their previous titles, which actually made me fall in love with this genre of games in the first place. No game is perfect, but for me, it was easy to overlook these flaws as the good outweighs the bad. If you're looking for an emotional experience to feel inspired by, with an amazing soundtrack, stunning visuals, gripping story, relatable and dynamic characters, then Lost Records is an excellent start. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for sitting through this entire video. I do want to apologise that it took me so long to make it, as Lost Records has been out for quite some time now. But after I played, I wanted to take some time to digest it, as well as doing several more playthroughs for footage and taking down notes, etc. Not that anyone cares much, but I also have a lot happening in my real life behind the scenes, which sadly doesn't leave me with much time to make these larger projects. A big yay for adulting! But I do appreciate your patience in that time. As I just said, again, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you all have a lovely day, afternoon, evening, whenever you're watching this video. Goodbye, and take care.